Hi, welcome to my channel. Two things in every one of my videos. I've got a cold. I've had a cold I think since like mid-October, and the lighting, it's gonna stress me out. I need to talk to a professional. I don't know how they do it, but blimmin' me. The lighting in my videos annoys me, and the cars. So many things. Anyway, thanks for joining. So today I'm gonna do a fun little video all about some newborn essentials. So I have a little boy, Jet, who's 20 months old, and with this next baby coming along, I just thought I'd put together a video of the things that I loved with Jet that I then know I definitely want to use again with the baby. And I'm going to do it in two parts. I'm going to do newborn essentials for the baby, but then I'm also going to do a video on newborn essentials for you as the mum. Guy outside looks like he's potentially about to rob a car, so I'm just going to keep my eye on that. First up, I'm going to start with the biggest thing, and that is my best friend, the Sleepyhead. I love our Sleepyhead so much. It is just the best thing ever. So it's a little bed basically for your baby. I'm sure you've heard of it before. So we borrowed a friend's Sleepyhead with Jet, but then this time around we've got our own one, which is fun. And we've got the Sleepyhead Deluxe, and it's just great. It's got this really nice border to it. In fact, I might film it as I talk about it rather than trying to do it on screen. But it's got this great thick border, so the baby's just kind of cocooned really nicely. It's just really comfy and cozy for them. And then this end bit can unclip, which is really handy as they're getting a bit bigger. So Jet was in his Sleepyhead till about 9 months, I think. I've got a friend that her baby sleeps like a little starfish, so he didn't last in his as long. Whereas Jet quite liked kind of snuggling on his side with his knees bent up a little bit. So he was really comfy in his Sleepyhead for a long time. It's just brilliant and portable. So we'd have it just sat here on our sofas with us in the evenings, or in the day if he was napping, I could put him on the worktop in the kitchen. If he went to stay with my parents, at first they didn't have a travel cot for him, so we'd just take the Sleepyhead, plonk it on the floor next to our bed, and he was perfectly happy. It's perfect for practicality in terms of you can use it anywhere you want. It's really mobile. It meant we didn't need to get a Moses basket as well. We just had the Sleepyhead. How many times do you think I'm going to say Sleepyhead in this video? If maybe they're struggling to sleep at night, we had a few nights where he, for whatever reason, wasn't settling very well, so we'd have him in bed with us. But I was a bit nervous about having him just loose in bed with us, but Sleepyhead is perfect. We could just put him in between us, or Henry maybe got relegated to the floor, I can't remember now. But it meant he felt nice and close to you. I could be stroking him and letting him know I'm close, but without him being literally just in the bed with us. Yeah, and then I'd say especially for travel, it's just really nice having this thing that just goes in the car so easily. Or actually, even when he was really little, we've got the Bugaboo Buffalo, and so at first they're in the big bassinet, which is actually quite big, and I found like he just kind of rolled around it a bit too much, and actually fits the Sleepyhead in it. So I put the Sleepyhead in the bassinet, and then when we were out he could be like really cozy and cocooned. In those first few weeks when they're sleeping so much anyway, he was nice and warm and cozy in his buggy. The Sleepyhead cover as well is removable, so obviously it gets a lot of sick and other lovely baby bodily fluids on it, but it's really easily cleanable. And you can buy individual covers as well if you want to change it up, as those are patterns, and it's just great. I just love a Sleepyhead. On to the next thing. This might feel quite obvious, but muslins. I feel like they're an obvious one, but they've got maybe even more uses than you'd realise. So we just had, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear some background music. Henry's downstairs in his studio working on something, so if you can hear music, apologies. This is what happens when you both work from home. These muslins, I mainly just got the really, really big ones, so that they could double up as swaddles. Although actually, we didn't end up swaddling because of the Sleepyhead, and because it was so cozy, didn't really feel the need to swaddle him. But that's why I initially bought these. It ended up being useful that they were this big anyway. So these ones are from Ziggy Baby. I think I got them on Amazon. They were a set of 3. Really nice design. So this design with these little like crosses. Ones with little arrows, and then some like a chevron design. And they're obviously useful when you're holding the baby. You just have it on you permanently because they're just sick the whole time. For the first few months, every time Jet fed, he then was sick. You're just constantly having spillages and things that need mopping up and whatever. You're just wiping all the time. I didn't realise quite much wiping would be going on. So we just had these in every room, in every changing bag, under the buggy, at the bottom of his bassinet in the buggy, like hidden away. Just really helpful. Also, if you're out and maybe it gets a bit chilly, you just wrap it around him as a blanket. But then also, We used one, we had it laid across the top of his Sleepyhead, so he'd lie here and then he was basically sit all the time, only little bits but still enough that it's a bit gross, and then we could just whip this off and wash this rather than having to constantly be washing the whole Sleepyhead cover. So that was a really helpful mum hack. Next up, newborn. I've only got this small amount to show you. A cotton wool pleat, and you just kind of tear off little bits as you go. And this is what we changed his nappy with. For the first few weeks, we changed his nappy with this and then a little pot of warm water. Just because baby wipes are a bit too harsh on their skin when they're first born, and their poos as well can be really sticky. Like their first few poos are like tar, and so cotton wool and water kind of cleans it just a lot better, and it just feels nice and soft on them. And I think as well, using the warm water, they often find nappy changing quite distressing at first because it's quite cold and it's just not very nice for them. A nice little bit of warm water on a cotton wool pad is just a bit gentler, because I know there's the water wipes and they are great, but even with them I still felt like they could be a little bit cold sometimes. So for the first few weeks I just found it was really nice having those, just so it's a bit gentler on their little tiny newborn bottoms. This is another thing I feel like I talk about a lot, the Nook, which is basically a snot sucker, and it's very gross. Squeeze, put up their nose and then let go, and it just pulls out all the snot. And I found this really, really useful. It's funny the things you just don't think about till you've had a baby, and then it seems quite obvious. The first few weeks of their life, they have got a lot of congestion, a lot of phlegm and snotty noses and quite raspy sounding breaths, and it's because they've been living underwater for 9 months, and I'd never even thought about that. Their little body has to transition from being a little like underwater being to a living in the air being, and so they've just still got lots of liquid and mucousy stuff kind of flowing through their body, and so for those first few weeks that's all coming out and they're kind of clearing out their system. So I found Jet had a really bunged up nose quite a lot in those first few weeks. Obviously they can't blow their nose, there's no real way of helping them other than this, and so I just used this a lot, and I just found it so helpful. You could hear the difference in his breathing when he'd be like rasping and just really phlegmy, and then you use this, pull out these little bits of snot, and then he could breathe so much more clearly, and it was just really satisfying. I'd really recommend that. Not glamorous, but you'll thank me. Next up, I know it's probably a controversial one, but it was an essential for us. It's going to be essential for us with the next baby, and that is Dummies. We love the Mam Dummies. I think that's how you say it, M-A-M, Mam. I love the Mam Dummies. They're the ones that Jet's got on really well with. They come in this little box of 2, which is then just great pot to put them in that go in the changing bag. Not everyone's going to agree with me, but this is what we did with our baby, and we're very happy with our decision. I feel like I have to justify myself. You definitely want to give them time to establish their feeding, to know you're comfortable with feeding, to know that they're being fed well and they're at least back to their birth weight and then are gaining weight. So once I was at that stage with Jet, maybe 3 weeks in, I felt like he was still feeding a lot just for comfort, and he wasn't feeding because he needed to, and I felt like we were starting to get into a slight routine. I knew he was feeding well when he was feeding, and yeah, it basically was just a comfort thing. And I'm not a harsh parent. I do a lot of gentle parenting, but also in the night I need to sleep, and my boobs aren't there just to comfort you. I'm sorry, I know other people are happy to kind of just feed whenever, and that's amazing, good for you. I don't know how you do it with no sleep, but for me, I knew I needed to sleep at night. And so with the rough, again, I talked about this in a previous video about sleep training, not harsh sleep training, just very kind, gentle sleep training. I talked about it a bit in that we kind of got into a rhythm of the 3-hourly mentality, where he is feeding at 7 AM, 10, 1 PM, 4 PM, 7 PM, 10, 4, 10, 1, 4, 7. So in the night, I knew that I was going to be doing a 10 o'clock feed, and I knew I was going to be waking up at 1 AM and 4 AM, and then the day would start at 7 AM. And so in between those times, as long as I knew he'd had a good feed at 1 and 4, in between those times, if he's waking at 2 AM after feeding, I stopped breastfeeding him and I would give him a dummy. Well, first of all, I'd just try and comfort him, and then I'd give him a dummy, and he'd almost always go back to sleep. And obviously you still need to listen to them. I wasn't like really rigid with it, so I'd give him his dummy, and if he still just couldn't settle, I then would feed him, and maybe it was just that he was that extra bit hungry that day, and that's totally fine. But in general, I found the dummy just really, really helped when he just needed comfort and not food. And then we all got a lot more sleep, and it was just a lot nicer. And then also that takes me on to bottles. We also used man bottles, and I think then it's nice because it's just nice consistency. The teats on the bottles are the same as the dummy, and they're quite a nice flat. Don't know if you'll be able to see. But they're quite a nice flat teat. A lot of bottles have the big rounded teats, and I think these are just a lot easier for them to take in. And they're also good like colic bottles. Don't ask me why, but it's something to do with this bottom bit and bubbles and something. We got on really well with these, and I had these from the beginning. There's newborn teat level. This is now Jet uses these now, so they're on a number 3, so they're quite big. They're really good just to have as a backup in case there is trouble with breastfeeding. Another thing which I used so much is coconut oil. So when Jet was born, his skin almost looked like a baby that's really overdue. Really dry, quite wrinkled and chapped, and just looked quite sad, particularly all on his hands and all on his feet. And so each evening I'd just do a little finger of this and just like gently massage it into his hands and feet. And then sometimes do more like his full body as well, but particularly like the really dry areas. And I just really liked using this because I know that it's just coconut. Whereas I feel like a lot of the products that you can buy are great. I'm sure they've got nothing in them and they're all organic and everything, but they still do include a lot more ingredients. And I think I just was quite attracted to the idea that I know this is just coconut and it's just really pure on such delicate skin. We didn't wash him for about 10 days. And they do recommend that because their body's covered in this kind of natural stuff, I don't know the word, after birth, that's really good for their skin. And so actually to wash that all off could leave their skin quite dry. So we just used the cotton pads and water, make sure his bottom was really clean, and under his neck and his armpits. We do like, basically I think that's what they call top and tailing. So we do that each evening, and then coconut oil. And then we first bathed him, yeah, like 10 days in, 2 weeks in. Next up is our baby monitor. So we had this from newborn. He was never in another room to us for months. He slept in here in the Sleepyhead, and then we'd take him through to the bedroom when we went to bed. So we didn't need it as a monitor, but this one is great because it also doubles up as a thermometer. So you just hold it to their head and hold down this button, and then it tells you their temperature, which I just found really, really helpful to have. So although it didn't come into play as a monitor, I'd still say it was a great newborn item to have. And it's a video screen as well, so once you do start using it as a monitor, it's really great because you can see what they're doing without having to go into their bedroom. So that I loved. So another thing I don't have on me, but I'll just insert a little picture, is a water thermometer, which once we did start bathing him, I loved and I got a bit obsessed with. I really liked using, and it's just this sweet little flower that you put in the bath, and it bobs along the top and it tells you the temperature of the water. Because I just was a bit paranoid at first about doing it too hot or too cold. And obviously once he was a bit bigger and a bit more robust, I'd just do the elbow test where you put your elbow in the water, and if it feels warm, great. And then I just say one last thing is just organisation wise, I found it really helpful to have a little bag for each thing. So we had this bag, Jet, for Jet. And so this, as a newborn, I mean this is Jet now, but as a newborn it would be similar stuff. So nappies and wipes, and nappy bags. And then I'd say 2 full changes of clothes, because I couldn't believe how many poo explosions and sick explosions we had on a daily basis. Our 10-day appointment with the midwife when you get discharged, got him all dressed in his outfit, put him in the car seat, and then he projectile vomited everywhere. We were already running late, and I was like, we're gonna look so bad, we're gonna look like we're not coping. And so I just grabbed his one spare change of clothes out of this bag, put it all on him, dumped him back in the car seat, went in the car, ran to our appointment. Then in the appointment, he pooed everywhere, like all up his back, all up his front. It was just everywhere. And the midwife, I remember her kind of like laughing and being like, don't worry, I'm sure your parents have got a change of clothes. We didn't. He was in his change of clothes. So we then had to use our trusty muslins and wrap him up. He had like big Tarzan style muslin pants, wrapped him all up in like as many muslins as we could to keep him warm. Luckily it was only like a 5-minute drive home to then get him dressed again. So from then onwards I always had 2 full sets of outfits. And then because it's his name bag, you know, when you're going to change his nappy, you just grab the Jet or insert baby name here, you'd grab their bag. And then in my mum essential video, I'll show you then I had one that was a mama bag with all my essentials in. And then obviously if Henry and Jet are just going off, Henry just can take this and I can keep my mama bag on me because he doesn't need my nipple cream. I'd say that's pretty much it. Obviously there's the big things. Bedside crib we're still struggling with. We used a swinging cot with Jet that I didn't get on very well with, so we're currently on the hunt for a good, I'd like a 3-sided bedside one. I can get him in and out really easily. With the swinging crib, I found it just hurt my back a bit in those first few weeks. Those are the kind of bare essential favourites for us with a newborn. I think there's a lot of extra stuff you can be told you need. So for example, the bath seat we never got. We just had him in the sink, just lying in the sink, and he was perfectly happy. And sterilising stuff we never used. I mean, he didn't use a bottle till he was a few months old anyway. But for us, we just washed stuff with hot water, or used the dishwasher. But I didn't use the big sterilising box thing. That just feels like such a faff. And I think in a way, you're just delaying the inevitable, that they're going to start, their immune system needs to be kind of put into action at some point. They're going to be exposed to germs. So with our dummies, you know, we just wash them in hot water. I'd sometimes, you know, just put it in my mouth first before giving it to him. I didn't sterilise them, I didn't sterilise his bottles. And so all that kit, for me, I don't think it's an essential. I think if you want to use it, great, of course. But I don't think it's an essential. And I think some things like that you're made to feel like are an essential, but they're not really, in my opinion. Oh, also, another thing, Sling. I've lent it out to a friend, so I can't show you, but I'll insert a few photos of us using it. I used it so much. So we had a Kaboo carrier, which is a really nice, like a real baby wearing type soft sling. But it's a really nice design where some of them are just one big piece of material that you then have to kind of wrap all around yourself, which can be quite tricky. Whereas this one comes already in like a cross shape, so it's quite easy. You like put it over your shoulders. It's basically quite easy to wear. You don't have to be faffing about with it too much. It really holds the baby really, really close to you. I used it from when he was tiny. And I found that great if I wanted to get things done. If he was a bit unsettled in the day, but I wanted to put a wash on or something, I could have him in the sling. And when we were out and about as well. Just was really nice to have him close to me. It was really special. And he could nap and I could kind of get on with things. And then we progressed on to an ergo once he was a bit older and a bit more robust and could hold himself a bit more. But at first we used the Kaboo carrier and yeah, I loved it. I think that's everything. I hope I haven't forgotten anything that would be helpful for you. Stay tuned for a mum essentials with a newborn. Thank you so much for watching and lots of love. Peace out.